So, hello and welcome to this Archaeology and Paleoecology virtual Taste Day talk on QUB Archaeology in the Mediterranean. My name is Dr. Dirk Branteram. I'm the Program Director for all the various undergraduate programs in archaeology and in paleoecology here at Queen's. And I'd like to give you a quick overview of the various research projects and research activities that we are conducting here at the department and that are dealing with Mediterranean archaeology. So obviously, much of the work we're doing here is on the archaeology of the island of Ireland. We also have research projects on mainland Britain, on Europe, from Portugal to Russia, Southeast Asia, Africa, the Americas. But today in this talk, I'm going to talk specifically about the research projects that we have ongoing in the Mediterranean. And unlike most, if not all, other archaeology departments in the UK and in Ireland, our research actually encompasses all of the Mediterranean basin. So we're not focusing just on one specific area within the Mediterranean, but from the Eastern Mediterranean through the Central Mediterranean to the Western Mediterranean basin, we've got fieldwork projects in a number of different countries and areas. And we also have a second year field trip, which usually goes to some destination in the Mediterranean. In the past, that's been Rome. Last few years, it's been to Malta. And before that, it has gone to Portugal on some occasion. And the staff behind those various research projects here at the department are Professor Caroline Malone with her work on Malta and Sicily, Dr. Mélie Leroy excavating megalithic monuments in southern France, Dr. Will McGarry working on Cretan peak sanctuaries, and myself working on the Bronze Age and early Iron Age in Spain and in Portugal, currently mostly southeastern Spain. So I'm going to run you through the various research projects that we are undertaking, and I'm going to start with Will McGarry's work in Central Crete, looking at Minoan, essentially Middle Bronze Age peak sanctuaries. Now, mountaintop locations in many parts of prehistoric Europe and beyond do have special significance. Here, for example, you're looking at the Idaean Cave in Central Crete. According to Greek mythology, this was a place where young Zeus was brought up in hiding by his mother Rhea to be kept safe from his father Kronos. And early excavations in the cave have produced a lot of Bronze Age, Iron Age votive offerings. And while not strictly speaking a peak sanctuary, the Idaean Cave does illustrate the importance of these high altitude locations, sanctuaries in Minoan religion. And here on Rhython, a ritual vessel from the palatial side of Zakros, you have the image of what would have been a peak sanctuary at the time, and you can see these various animals there, mountain goats, the rugged landscape. So that is what some of those sites we're going to look at would have looked like back in the second millennium BC. And the first of these sites that we are going to take a look at is Euctus here in Central Crete, the red rectangle there. And this is what the ruins on the peak of Euctus look like today. Here in some more detail, you've got a ground plan, and Will's research really was looking at the role of these sanctuaries within the wider landscape, how they were used by the communities inhabiting the interior of Crete, and it's quite likely that their increased importance in the Middle Bronze Age has to do with the increased economic significance of pastoralist exploitation of essentially sheep grazing in these mountains during that period. So from the Linear B tablets a little bit later at Knossos, we know that the herds managed by that palace had included up to 100,000 sheep at any one time in central Crete here alone. Another peak sanctuary here is Kofinas on the south coast of central Crete. You've got a view of the peak here, and interestingly, there is a Christian Orthodox chapel located close, right next to the ruins of the Bronze Age sanctuary. Here you've got the interior of that chapel with modern Christian votive offerings, not quite the same obviously as those from the Iron Age or Bronze Age, but the basic idea and the basic tradition has survived the millennia and is still practiced in some of these modern Christian peak sanctuaries today. So now we're moving to Malta, to the central Mediterranean, with Professor Malone's research, in particular with the Fraxis project. So Fraxis is an acronym that stands for Fragility and Sustainability in Restricted Island Environments. Essentially, what this project is trying to do is looking at Malta and Gozo as a Maltese archipelago as a whole, and use this as a test tube, as a laboratory setting to study how prehistoric societies, and in this particular case, this prehistoric society in this island setting, interacted with its environment. So the temples, the so-called temple structures you see here, are more than a millennium earlier than the Cretan peak sanctuaries that you were seeing before. So these date mostly to the fourth, early third millennium, beginning in the late fifth, and developing over various centuries until the whole civilization here on Malta collapses at some point in the third millennium BC. And we're trying to figure out here what the reasons behind this collapse were. If it was overexploitation of the natural environment, or if other factors perhaps were at play. So this involves looking at a lot of different aspects of the archaeological record, and trying to reconstruct how these interacted in the past. And for this, the project has to look at obviously archaeological sites, but also recovering a lot of paleo-economic and paleo-environmental evidence from the Maltese landscape. Here you've got, on these maps, you've got the location of a number of coring sites, some of them predating the Fraxis project, but most of this work conducted within the framework of that project. And to better understand the archaeological record on Malta, obviously we're bringing to bear a lot of the latest cutting-edge technology in the field. Some of these instruments you would have been able to have a close look at if the taster day had been taken place on site, as it usually does, but obviously that's, for obvious reasons, that's not possible this year. But apart from the latest cutting-edge technology, studying archaeological sites anywhere in the world, also in Malta, also includes a lot of old-school elbow grease approach. Now, moving on to southern France, to Dr. Leroy's research. Mélie Leroy is looking at funerary monuments in southern France. So we do have some settlement evidence here from the 3rd millennium BC, the very end of the Stone Age, and you can see the outline of the remains of a village from that period up there in the left-hand corner. But most of the sites we do have are funerary sites, and there's quite a wide variety of those. So we do have megalithic tombs like dolmens. We also have the use of natural caves for burials at this period and at this time. And we do have the so-called hypogea, so underground galleries or artificial caves, if you want, all being used at the same time by different local communities. And Dr. Leroux's research is trying to establish, on the one hand, why certain communities preferred certain types of, or built and used certain types of monuments and not others. And also because many of these excavations are old excavations, to undertake fresh field work and recover evidence that perhaps was overlooked in the past, particularly the study of human remains. So this is a site, the dolmen of Les Abris near Beaulieu, and you've got a plan there with the position of the human remains from that monument, which then later on are studied in the laboratory to answer questions about, well, the demography of those populations, the origins. So are these recent new arrivals? Are these communities that have been present in that area for a long time? The development of funerary practices, obviously, but also the health of those populations. And then now we're moving on to southeast Spain, to the Segura Valley in this particular case, to be precise, my own work here on the early and middle Bronze Age. And as you can see from this map, Iberia is an area that is very rich in mineral deposits, copper, tin, silver, gold, you name it, but particularly in southeastern Spain, where we have this very rich, flourishing early and middle Bronze Age culture, the El Agar culture, named after the eponymous site. We do have relatively, in comparison to other parts of the peninsula, relatively few mineral deposits. And so there has been a long-running discussion on how the control of access to those resources would have conditioned the development of those early Bronze Age and Middle Bronze Age societies. So here we are talking about hilltop settlements. So these are not peak sanctuaries. These are villages and towns perched on mountaintops, like in this particular case at Fuente Alamo, under excavation. Here the reconstruction of the site of La Bastida, another major El Agar settlement in that area, with some public buildings like Building O here from Fuente Alamo. And interestingly, one of the peculiar features of the El Agar culture is that we have intramural burials. So the dead were buried within the settlements. The graves are located within the settlements, sometimes under the floor of the houses in which presumably their families were living. So as part of this research here, we're trying to figure out, were the copper used for the production of some of those grave goods, of some of those objects that found their way into the burial record, would have come from. And the Cabeza de la Mina it's the site of a modern copper mine, so no longer in operation, but was in operation well into the 20th century. This is one of the few sites where perhaps we can establish a link between the Bronze Age occupation. So there is one of these hilltop settlements perched right on top of that hillock, a small rocky hillock here, set in front of the main ridge of the Sierra de Orihuela, and we're trying to establish through a program of archaeometallurgical analysis if we can trace back some of the Bronze Age metal objects found at the site and in this general area to this particular ore body. Some more images here from the Cabezo de la Mina. You've got a number of dump heaps here from the modern mining activity on the slopes. We did map all of the mines, most of these modern, and we did explore some of the earlier mines. This is mostly a Roman mining shaft in the vicinity of the site, but there is also evidence of pre-Roman mining. We know that it's pre-Roman because the tool traces on the walls of the shaft are from stone tools. They're not from metal tools. We still have to establish the exact date of these remains. Apart from the research activities our staff are conducting within the Mediterranean, I already mentioned there's also a field trip in second year, which most of the time goes to Mediterranean destinations or has gone to Mediterranean destinations in the past. One of them, Rome. So here's some images, some impressions from the 2015 Rome field trip, where students go and explore the remains of ancient Rome and prepare documentation on the sites as part of their assessment. Then more recently, on a couple of occasions, we've done the field to Malta. Here some images from 2018, and one of these famous or infamous and quite unpronounceable Maltese megalithic temple complexes. Some more here with the temple complex of Jantija and an overview of the development of Maltese temple architecture up there in the left. And some impressions here from the National Museum of Archaeology on Malta with objects, with sculpture from some of those temple sites. Here is the Mediterranean team from our department. Again, Professor Caroline Malone, Dr. Melly Lara, Dr. Will McGarry, and myself. I hope you have now a slightly better idea of what some of us are doing. Most of the people you see here, most of the faces you see here, we're also undertaking field work and research in other parts of the world, so this is just a subset of what we're doing. Most of this research obviously could not be conducted without involving student volunteers from our undergraduate courses. So if you're keen on going to any of these countries, to any of these areas, and getting your hands dirty, then you will definitely get a chance to do so during your undergraduate career here at the department. For now, I thank you for your kind attention, and you can obviously find out more about some of our work here and some of the projects I've mentioned on our YouTube site and also on our Facebook site here run by the department.